Welcome back everybody to the Baldur's Gate and Unity tutorial series. I just wanted to show you, I changed the stairs like I was mentioning last time so that there's just a single collider for the bulk of the stairs and then an extra collider at each major platform area of it. It makes the whole thing a lot smoother. I'll just show you real quick in play mode. When you are running up them, now you don't have that super choppy feeling we had before where your character's bouncing up each step. This is a lot more typical, it's more performant, easy fix. Now let's create a new script. We're going to call this interactable base. And we're going to create another new script, which we will call player interaction controller. And we can just drag that script onto our player. And then we'll add a component, a sphere collider, which we will make a trigger. And I'm going to just size this up nice and big. Now let's open up the interactable base, and we're going to change this to be a public abstract class. We'll make a header, which we will call interaction, and a serialized field, which will be a protected string called prompt text, and we'll just initialize this to say use. We'll make another serialized field, which will be a protected transform, which we'll call prompt anchor. Then we'll make a public virtual string. It's called get prompt text. We'll say return prompt text. We'll make a public virtual transform called get prompt anchor, which will return, you guessed it, the prompt anchor. The way we're going to word this is to say that if the prompt anchor does not equal null, question mark, prompt anchor, transform. Basically, if we don't tell it a specific prompt anchor, we don't want this to return null, we'll just say get the transform that we're currently attached to. Then we'll make a public virtual bool called canInteract that takes a game object called interactor, will return true. Then we'll make a public void, try_interact, which takes again a game object, which we'll call interactor, and we'll say if canInteract, and it will take that interactor as an argument, return interact interactor. And then lastly, we'll do a protected abstract void, which is interact game object interactor. And that's it. We can save that, pop back out, and open up our player interaction controller. Delete the start and update method, make a header. We'll call this input, make a serialized field for our input action reference, interact action. We'll make another header, call this prompt UI, and we'll make a serialized field for our canvas, call this prompt canvas, a serialized field for a rect transform, this will be the prompt canvas rect, a serialized field for another rect transform, this will be our prompt root, and a serialized field for our text mesh pro UGUI, and this will be the prompt label. Make another serialized field, vector3, world offset, which I'm just going to initialize at zeros. But this is here in case you want to, consistently offset the label, maybe on the y-axis to have it be a bit above an object, for example. We'll make a serialized field for the camera called target camera, and a new header called selection. We'll make a serialized bool called require in front of camera, set that to true, and another serialized field bool, which will be hide if off screen, and set that to true. Then we'll make a private read-only list of the interactable base, which we'll call nearby interactables, and we'll say that equals new, and then we'll do a private interactable base, which we will call current interactable. Now let's make our awake method and say if target camera is null and camera.main is not null, then make the target camera the camera.main. We'll also say if our prompt canvas is null, then our prompt canvas is going to be equal to get component in children canvas. And then lastly, we'll do if prompt canvas rect is null and prompt canvas does not equal null, then get the prompt canvas rect underneath the prompt canvas. And then actually lastly, we'll put a hide prompt in here. Then on enable, we're going to say if interact action does not equal null, interact action.action.enable, interact action.action.performed plus equals on interact performed. And copy and paste this, change it to disable, move this line up to the top and say minus equals on interact performed, and change this to disable. And then in our update method, we're just going to have two methods, update current interactable and update prompt. And we'll pop down and make on trigger enter. We're going to say interactable base interactable equals other dot get component in parent interactable base. Pop down here and say if interactable equals null, then interactable equals other dot get component interactable base. If interactable still equals null, return. Now, if our nearby interactables does not contain the interactable we're looking at, then we're going to add that interactable into our nearby interactables. Next, let's make onTrigger exit. We're going to kind of just copy and paste this here because the only things we really need to change are, we can take this line, just copy and paste that up here, change this add to remove, and then we can just delete this bottom stuff. And if our current interactable is equal to this interactable, set current interactable to equal null. Now let's make our private void onInteract performed, which takes an input action.callback context as an argument, and we'll say if current interactable is null, return. If current interactable.canInteract GameObject is false, return. Current interactable.tryInteract GameObject. And that's it for that. Then we'll do our update current interactable method. We'll say nearby interactables.remove all, and we'll say item is null. Then we'll make an interactable base which we'll call best interactable, which will start off as null. We'll say float best distance square equals float.maxValue, vector3 player position equals transform.position. Then we'll make a for each loop that says for each interactable base, which we'll call interactable, in our nearby interactables, we're going to say if interactable is null, continue. If interactable.canInteract with this game object is false, also continue. Transform anchor equals interactable.getPromptAnchor. If our anchor equals null, continue. And we'll say vector3 world position equals anchor.position plus world offset. Then we'll say if require in front of camera and target camera does not equal null, vector3 viewport point equals target camera dot world to viewport point world position. Next, we'll say if viewport point dot z is less than or equal to 0, continue. And then below here, we will say float distance square equals interactable.transform.position minus player position dot square magnitude. Pop down here and say if distance square is less than best distance square should be equal to distance square. Then we'll say best interactable equals interactable. And then down here we'll say current interactable equals best interactable. Now moving on, we'll say private void update prompt, and we'll make this method. If current interactable is null, or target camera is null, or prompt root is null, or prompt canvas is null, hide prompt and return. Transform anchor equals current interactable.getPromptAnchor. If anchor is null, you guessed it, hide prompt, return. Then we'll say vector3 world position equals anchor.position plus world offset. Then we'll say vector3 screen position equals target camera dot world to screen point world position. If screen position dot z is less than or equal to 0f, we're going to hide the prompt and return. Then if hide if off screen, we're going to say inside that if screen position dot x is less than 0f, or screen position dot x is greater than screen dot width, or the screen position dot y is less than 0f, or the screen position dot y is greater than screen dot height. We are going to hide the prompt and return. We'll say position prompt, which we'll take as an argument screen position. We'll say show prompt current interactable dot get prompt text plus this little add-on here, because for now we're just going to hard code that we're pressing the space bar in order to actually do the interaction. Now let's make this private void position prompt method, which takes vector3 screen position as an argument. We'll say if prompt canvas.render mode is equal to render mode.screen space overlay, then our prompt root.position equals screen position, and we'll return. Then we'll say if prompt canvas rect is null, return. Then we'll say camera UI camera equals prompt canvas.worldCamera does not equal null, question mark, prompt canvas.worldCamera, colon, target camera. Then down here, we're going to say if rect transform utility dot screen point to local point rectangle screen position, and I'm going to move this down here, and it's actually not screen position. Prompt canvas rect, screen position, UI camera, out vector 2, which we'll call local point. Then prompt root dot anchored position equals local point. Now down here, we're going to do our show prompt, which is going to be a private method, which will take a string text, and we'll say if prompt root does not equal null, and prompt root dot gameObject dot active self is false, then prompt root dot gameObject dot active self equals true. If prompt label does not equal null, prompt label dot text equals text. And we'll say private void hide prompt, and we'll say if prompt root does not equal null, prompt root dot gameObject dot setActive is false. And then lastly, we will say public interactable base get current interactable, and we will return current interactable. And that should be it. We need to fix this up here to have parentheses, and that should actually be it. We can save this, pop back over into Unity, and drag in all of these different references. I'm going to use the player jump action because I want to use spacebar for this for now. And then underneath the player, we're going to add a canvas. By simply adding a Text Mesh Pro, the canvas will be added automatically. I'm going to set the text for now to just say interact text. I'm going to add an image just to make this a little easier to read. This will be a background, so I'm going to make it black, make it slightly transparent. You'll want to drag it above the text so that it shows up behind it. And I'm going to make it a bit wider here. Looks like 250 should be okay. And I'm going to center the text here so that it's right in the middle. And then I'm going to make an empty parent for these, which I will call our prompt root. And then for the canvas scaler, let's change this to scale with screen size and set it to 1920 by 1080 so that when we drag our screen size around here, this scales properly. We'll drag in the canvas rect, the prompt root, prompt label, all of those into there. I'm going to rename this to prompt label just so it's really clear. And let's make one more script here so we can actually test this. We're going to call this climb ladder. We're not actually going to climb a ladder in this video, but we will jump into that in the next one. For now, just delete the start and update method, change this from a mono behavior into an interactable base. It's inheriting that class. And you can just do the quick fix here and it'll say throw new system not implemented exception. Basically just, hey, you haven't actually made this do anything yet. We'll say public override string get prompt text and make this say climb. We'll drag that onto our ladder. For the prompt anchor, I'm just going to make that the ladder's, root game object here. So it should pop up right around the base of the ladder when we hit play. Let's go test it. Gonna run over here and nothing's happening. What did I do wrong? There should be something showing up there to say, hey, you can interact with this, even though we didn't implement any interaction yet. Okay, I forgot to add a rigid body. Without a rigid body, this does not work. This is important. Anytime you're using the onTrigger methods, you have to have a rigid body. Now, we're not using the built-in physics, so turn off gravity and make this is kinematic. And now this should work like we're expecting it to. And there it is. And you can see it renders in front of everything because it's a screen space UI, but it stays pinpointed as if it's a world space canvas, which is really cool. Now, anytime there's an interactable object, we should be able to walk up to it and it'll have its own little prompt that shows up. We've started setting things up for in the future when we have multiple interactables in our space simultaneously that we can prioritize either whichever one's closer, or eventually we'll add the ability to sort of cycle through if there are multiple that are in range. But in the next video, we will just start with implementing this ladder specifically so that when we press spacebar, we actually climb up to the top of that platform. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.